welcome to a very special Eid transmission from PTV World Centre Lahore. I'm your host Fatma Shaheen, and here's wishing everybody a very happy Eid and Eid Mubarak to everybody who is celebrating all over the world. Eid, as we all know, is a joyous occasion for all of us, and to celebrate it in a more joyous manner, today we have this very special show where we'll try and bring in lots of laughter, lots of fun, and of course, lots of intelligent and candid conversation. Having said that, without wasting more time, let me introduce you to my wonderful lineup of guests here with me today. My first guest for the panel today is Miss Hajra Hayat, who's a very accomplished fashion designer. Assalamu alaikum ji and Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak to everyone. Have a happy, merry, joyous Eid.
My second panelist for the show today is Dr. Mohammad Amjad Saqib Saab, who's a prominent social worker. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Wishing you a very happy Eid.
Thank you very much, and same to you.
My third panelist for the show today is Dr. Madiha Rao, who's a renowned cosmetic aesthetic physician. Assalamu alaikum, madam, and Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak to all of you, and spend it happily with your family, friends and your neighbors, and don't forget other people around you.
And my fourth panelist for the show today is Zulfikar Ali Badr Saab, who's the spokesman to Chairman PPP. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and Eid Mubarak.
Thank you very much for inviting us, and I would like to extend the heartiest Eid to you, and through your platform to all the people around the world. A very happy Eid.
Now, to get the conversation started with you, Hajra, we must talk about the way fashion designers work. And of course, fashion designers, we all know, have a very important responsibility so as to help people, dress up in the most perfect and of course the best way. But when it comes to your own sense of style, when it comes to your own dressing, what are your clothing preferences like, more typically for occasions like Eid?
On Eid, I basically always go minimalistic. There are always days when I want to go all out. There are always those days. But I am more focused on the mehndi, particularly. I'm quite accessories based person, but when it comes to personal styling, I've always had a bit of a minimalistic approach.
Right.
And similarly, the brand itself carries a certain weightage on cuts and all that.
And I think over a period of time too, Hajra, we have seen that, especially post the COVID pandemic, we are moving towards more minimalistic looks. Less is always more. And I personally at least feel that it's the confidence with which you carry your clothes, whether you're wearing something very simple, whether it's more elaborate.
I think it's also depends on A, the occasion, B, also whatever you're feeling like. I think fashion is always what's coming from inside. My general styling is basically sort of very toned down.
Right, Hajra, on which I'll come to you, sir. I think here we must also talk about your commendable work, and we all understand the fact that you have been working all these years very diligently so as to uplift and empower the poor people in the country. But when it comes to special occasions like Eid, do you have any specific Eid programs or initiatives in this regard?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole objective and the vision of Akhuwat is serving the people and trying to build a society which gives opportunity to everybody,
right,
irrespective of caste, color, gender and things like that. So whenever there are sacred months or days, so this responsibility of giving, it increases manifold. For example, during the month of Ramadan, we try to support families so that they can have best at the Sehris and best at the Iftars. So, Akhuwat, Alhamdulillah, with the support of the people of Pakistan who are generous enough,
right.
So they have provided a lot of resources, and we have been able to purchase rations and then give some cash, support to these
Which
families.
Is great.
Arranged a large number of Sehris
and all these gifts, sir, I'm presuming they're very all-inclusive in the sense that you're catering to different members of the family.
Yeah, absolutely. Eid is not only for the Muslims. Eid
right.
is for the Christians as well. They celebrate, and then within a family, there is no gender discrimination. Especially we focus on girls and boys and kids, orphans. So this is all inclusive and a holistic approach.
On which I'll come to you, Doc Saib. I think in this regard, we must also, of course, talk about inclusivity, but inclusivity with regards to men too. So when we do talk about men, one trend that we all have seen over a period of time is the fact the average Pakistani man out there has definitely become more interested in their personal grooming, in the way they look, in their skincare, so to speak. So when it comes to occasions like Eid, what are the trends that you notice with regards to men coming to doctors like yourself so as to look good, so as to groom themselves?
First of all, they are getting like more groomed. They want to have a clean skin, clear skin, and a good hairline. And sometimes they demand for a good jawline as well. Aging males, they come for Botox treatments, and sometimes when they don't like extra hair over the ears, nose, they could go for lasers as well.
Right.
So it's not considered to be a female thing nowadays. Everybody wants to look good.
Right. And this is also men who are not, who don't belong to the media industry, because a lot of times we see the average Pakistani male, they're also very easily kind of letting go of all the perhaps stereotypes attached with toxic masculinity, letting that go, and for such, which is, I think, in its own right very justified too. But when we talk about the reasons because of which they seek such treatments, because fundamentally the reasons at some level they might be common, but at some level they might be different too. So what are the reasons that you attribute to the same? Because this was perhaps not the case for the past few decades, and this is something which has picked up more particularly in the past few years.
Yes, sometimes they are brought by their wives. They want them to look good, and sometimes the daughters.
Really?
This is really a sweet thing, such a sweet thing. They bring their fathers, they want their fathers to look nice and good. And sometimes when the male wants to get remarried, they often visit us.
Right. So basically coming towards you, Zulfikar Saab, I think we should also talk about your work. Of course, you're a lawyer and then you're also a political worker. So with people like yourself who have so much on their plate, what is your typical Eid day like? It would then be somewhere difficult to find that perfect work life and home life balance, wouldn't it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much.
You're most
I would
welcome.
like to extend my heartiest congratulations on this Eid day to
Thank
you
you.
and all the viewers
Thank
for
you.
watching us. Yes, it's very difficult to actually keep a balance, because sometimes we are not actually the person who we want to be on this Eid day, because there is a lot of requirement from the home that we should spend time at home on Eid day. But with the burden of work that we have, that go in the constituency, meet people,
Right.
and especially to go to the people and visit them where there is a somebody elder have died in their homes, and we go for the Fatiha offer.
Right.
So these are the things that we have to do. And being a lawyer, there is so much of requirement on the Eid days from the people who have their family members in jail or in hospitals.
Right.
So they have some kind of legal requirement,
Of
legal
course.
assistance. So it's like balancing the thing, and you have to serve people, public at large.
So how do you, the
especially.
question then still remains, sir, that how do you then try to find that perfect balance? Because I myself am a lawyer and I can of course understand that very well. Some way or the other, law, or for that matter politics in your case as well, that navigates itself through during, of course,
So the
days like these.
First day, I mostly like today, I spend all the day with my family. I try to, especially till evening. And if I have to go out, or some people have to visit, they come and visit us, especially in the morning before lunch, and some people come in the evening, they visit us. And this was the tradition back from my father, when I was very young, and
Right.
my father used to have a lot of visitors. So this was happening for a long time now. But now I actually have to go out sometimes, in the evening to different houses where
The
it's
tables
required.
have turned basically now.
Yeah.
Basically
so,
with time.
Yeah. So the second day is mostly out in the public, hanging out with people, going to their houses and meeting them, greeting them, attending lunches, dinners, and third day again it goes, and our Eid goes for like another 5-10 days.
Right.
That whosoever coming to the office, and we are congratulating
So
on
it's
the
like
Eid
a
day.
mini holiday for you or something
Yeah,
of that
it's
sort.
even if the holidays are over, so we have started we resume the work, and we are in the office, or we are going in the courts. So whosoever we are interacting in the courts,
on which I'll come to you, Hajra. I understand that, recently you've also started this wonderful
Yeah.
initiative,
Yeah.
which is that one-stop shop where
Yeah.
basically you're exhibiting work of designers,
Yeah.
of photographers, of makeup artists, of also, jewelers, so
Yeah.
to speak. So what was it that motivated you? I think it's very good to see designers like yourself doing this, because it kind of gives that boost to younger generations so as to perhaps up their game.
The thing is that for last, I think 10 years, I mean, for a whole decade, I've been noticing that there is a huge influx of some amazing talented designers and also makeup artists. So there was all, and I feel that, there are less platforms, and the ones that are there, there's always a lot of red taping. Now, I've always been one of those people. Talk to my people from school, university, or whatever. I've always had that thing about me that I feel like doing something out of the box. Now, I don't know how it's going to go. That's another direction altogether. But
it's definitely very well intentioned.
The intentions are, alhamdulillah, very clear. And the intentions are that I wanted to put up a store, like a multi-brand store. It's a business at the end of the day, but we are keeping it in a very comfortable environment where we are putting designers out there and we are not asking questions. Like, I've had calls from people who said, listen, I just opened up my business. I don't even have an Instagram page. And my point of view was, bring me your work, let me see it. We have two criteria at the All Things Bridal Fashion Store, which is on MM Alam. There's only two criteria. Number one, your work should be good. Number two, you should be passionate about your work. It's the end of story. In the fashion business, you have to be very passionate because it's a tedious work. It's a lot of work, a lot of time goes into it. So this was my top criteria. So we've had people call in, they're new designers also, and then there are ones also that are like storing at different fashion stores, and this is their third store or their fourth store. It's a very relevant place for makeup artists, jewelers, and for fashion designers to build their businesses.
Right. And sir, this is something which would be of interest to you too, because particularly I'm referring to this initiative program of yours, which you're running by the name of Ahuvat Clothes Bank, the purpose of which is basically to ensure that the needy people and the poor people, they get clothes and other gifts. And interestingly enough, transgenders are the one who are actually leading this program. So tell us more about it, and I'm sure you would be very interested in this basically work of Hajra's, because I think there could be good chances of a possible collaboration here.
Absolutely. We also worked on a very unique idea around 10 years ago. We noticed that a large number of good clothes, particularly women, they have in their wardrobes, and whenever there is change in season, or change in fashion, so all those clothes are hardly utilized. The same is true of men as well, that dozens and dozens of shirts and trousers are lying. So we came up with an idea that if you haven't used your clothes for 4 seasons, if summer has passed, if winter has passed, autumn has passed, and spring has passed, and you haven't worn that cloth for once, that means it's not of use for you.
Right.
So why don't you give it to somebody else?
Of course.
Similarly, if there is a change of fashion, or you don't like some clothes, you give it to your brother, your sister. So we told the people and requested them that why don't you give these clothes to us? Your old clothes will be someone's new clothes.
Right.
So we will give it to somebody who yearns for good clothes, who doesn't have the resources to purchase, and
sir, this is so much needed. Times like these, where of course the inflation is so much, and where people, there are so many who can't even afford to get a new outfit.
Developing a fraternity.
Right, sir.
If you give your sister a clothes, why don't you can give your clothes to somebody who is not your sister, but he's also the member of the society. So you will be amazed to know that our appeal was so fascinating for the people and so inspirational that so far we have been able to collect and distribute 4 million
That's amazing,
pairs
sir.
of clothes.
And sir, another way to look at it is also from the viewpoint that textile industry world over is a very big contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So actually what you're doing is being less harsh on the environment. It's supporting the environment, because clothes in themselves, they also come with their own ecological cost.
So I'm happy that you have introduced me to this wonderful
through this very show.
And we can get some clothes, because a large number of women has given us their bridal to us. They said that this is no use to us for now, and we give those bridals on zero rental.
That's amazing.
We just take a identity card and give that rent the bridal to the bridegroom or the family, and they use that and return it after 1 week.
On which I'll come to you, Doc Saiba. We have spoken at length about the need for there to be a sustainable fashion choices in terms of dressing up. But when the same comes to your profession, more particularly when it comes to having the right beauty care products, or for that matter, having the right skincare regimes in place, how do you propose can people, especially on occasions like Eid, ensure whatever they do, it has that sustainability element to it?
So we can start by taking care of our health, changing the lifestyle, going for exercise, and taking care of the diet, our sleep. So changing the lifestyle matters a lot. And when your skin is shining bright and your hair are fine, so you don't need extra cosmetic treatments, extra makeup over your faces. So try to avoid using a lot of chemicals, using a lot of things over yourself. So you can just go natural by taking care of your health, eating vitamins, doing just little random things.
Right.
It will make you look better and feel better
basically
as well.
the core here is, of course, something on which we should focus is the fact what should be prioritized is skincare, because I think Hajar, you would agree with me on this. A lot of times women, especially on special occasions or even otherwise, they're too much focused on buying makeup as opposed to investing on the skin, which of course stays with you for the rest of your life. So the focus in itself, that needs to change. On which I'll come to you, Zulfikar Saab. Now we know that Eid is a festive occasion, but somewhere or the other we also know it has that tendency to invoke nostalgia. So what would your fondest memory be of Eid, more particularly going through the Eid celebrations as a child?
Actually, there are a lot of memories, but with the passage of time, the traditions have been curtailing and slashing down because people are now staying in one house. There used to be a get together of families.
Right.
So there is an overall shift in the society, in the mindset. I think we have to educate on these lines, that these things should be educated and traditions should move on. And one of the oldest memory that I remember, that I used to go out in the morning with my father to Masjid Wazir Khan, from where my grandfather and my whole family comes from. So we used to go for Eid namaz and we spend time over there, and then come back in the afternoon, and then meet people in the house. So I think that part is missing with the passage of time.
I think in the passage of time here, what is important to understand is the fact, somewhere or the other, at least to the extent of young people, we can safely say that human interaction, that bonding in person, that has been lost. And for this, I feel social media is the main culprit. Would you agree with me on that?
I think on a very society-based level, I think social media is not the culprit. It's our generation, and I think all of us sitting here we might not be one of, we were not that pushy with our own families. We were all of us were very busy building our lives because our parents have been a little different. I remember my parents being more chilled, being more laid back. And obviously, Ammi was always home, and Dad's a bureaucrat, so he was out at work. He was back at 2 p.m. Their life was 5 p.m. at the park, and 8 p.m., 9 p.m. that PTV television dramas,
Right.
and that life. And our generation saw a huge transformation from first of all media,
Electronic media, then print, then social
progressing, and
media,
then
of
social
course.
media. So I think somewhere there's a little bit of, I think we should take the blame here also, that we haven't been able to sort of inculcate the traditional values that much. So we
But
look
you
back
see,
and we
it's a
obviously think
vicious
about
cycle.
it.
I understand where you're coming from. Do you not feel then that social media has kind of triggered that process? Because a lot of times we see, at least to the extent of young people, they would be better off exchanging all these Eid Mubarak messages perhaps on WhatsApp, on Instagram, on Twitter. Sir, your narrative here becomes very important, being the most senior on the panel today, because you've lived through that time where we didn't have social media at all, and of course things were done as they were done. So overall, how do you see our traditional Eid practices evolving over a period of time?
Yeah, the point is that we are getting every day so much addicted to social media that we are cutting off from the tradition. I remember in Eid days or in all these festivities, we used to meet friends, we used to meet, as Zulfa Sahib has told, that we used to meet with people around us in the street, in the mahalla, in the village, and there was a tradition of Eid cards, you know, that was a very,
I was about
used
to say
receive the Eid
That
cards.
is the most
Right.
missed
Yeah,
thing.
missed
Right.
things that,
Yes.
you know, because getting something written that speaks that you are
Of
being,
course.
you are in the thoughts of somebody else. But, you know, all those, let me say, quote
Those Eid
unquote,
cards are now, sir, digitized. I think the expression of love and affection is still there, but the way you express yourself, that
no,
has
but
changed.
writing your
Of course,
with
yeah.
own your
There's
with
a
the pen
sentiment
and the
with
hands,
that, yes.
that gives them
There's no
more
replacement
pleasure.
for that. I agree.
So
Emojis can't replace the sentiments.
True.
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
you know, reading a book, meeting people, and then greeting somebody, giving some food, and many other good things, sharing jokes. Now we are so much addicted to the social media that, in fact, we are captivated by somebody else's thoughts.
Right.
You know, whatever comes on social media, we start thinking about it, whether it is true or not. So your own thoughts are usually, you know, dumped down, and this is just you know, just great information which is so much coming to you.
Right.
And something I wonder, Jummah Mubarak, Eid Mubarak, Sunday Mubarak, Somwar Mubarak, morning Mubarak, evening Mubarak, and in this flood of information,
There's so much misinformation as well.
yeah, you know, the important messages
They are
you
lost
know,
somewhere,
they're lost.
right.
So this is something, you know, and I think we should try to live our life
Of course.
instead of being, you know, led by others.
Right.
They set a tone, they set a mood. They said, if in the morning.
Sir, also I feel that over a period of time we see, and I think Hadra, you would agree with me on this, social media has in a way capitalized on all this, you know, materialism, on consumerism. No.
A lot of pressure.
Right, because when you're
media adds
wearing
pressure.
designer dresses for
Well,
Eid,
it's
especially
just like a bad
celebrities
news
or
in the
people with
morning.
influence,
The whole the day,
right,
you know.
there's so much pressure on people to buy and actually
Yeah.
compete, and you
I
have
think
to have that
the
perfect
biggest
Eid
Eid
selfie.
pressure is the Eid selfie.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
So
yes.
this is why I'm saying at some level or the other, social media has completely changed the way we celebrate. Dr. Saiba, what would your narrative be on this? Because social media, in ways more than one, has also, of course, affected your line of work and, of course, the reasons because of which people actually come to doctors like yourself to seek treatments.
So she was talking about Eid selfies. So there is a lot of preparation for the Eid selfies. You need to have a good jawline.
Right.
You need to have good pouty lips for that. You need to have no lines. Yes, this is what.
So you have good business
Yes.
coming in before all these occasions. Yes.
Yes, it is just social media, which is seeing our face from all angles. And so once you are going to put up selfies, so you are going to take care of yourself, lose that double chin, get that jawline, get that chiseled nose, and get those pouty lips before you want a selfie.
Right.
Yes.
But that, of course, comes with its own baggage too.
Yes,
because you
no,
say
definitely.
there is, of course, a dark side to getting too much of Botox and fillers and all these treatments too. So everything needs to be done in proportion. It has to be balanced.
Yes.
On which I'll come to you, Zulfikar Sahib. I also, of course, talk about the need to celebrate Eid, but that too keeping in mind, of course, the context of interfaith harmony. So when we talk about celebrating Eid, that too with different communities in the society at large, how do you feel can we do that?
I think interfaith harmony is very important. I remember from my childhood the people from minorities, Christian communities, and from Sikh community, they used to come, and it was like a joint occasion. And I think it's probably celebrating more between the different communities, different religions. As I feel, I practically see that there used to be a time when it was the messaging and the interaction between our community as well. Now the people across the board, across the countries, neighbors around the world, from different religions, they are actually celebrating and wishing us Eid and Ramzan, and so this is a change between different religions, and this need to be add more value to the interfaith harmony
Right.
by educating, and we need
Of
to
course.
promote this culture of
We need to
interfaith
promote
harmony.
this culture basically, so as to be able to sustain it. Because you see, we need to ensure that when it comes to interfaith harmony, occasions like these can actually be used to initiate good dialogue. And this is something which would actually apply both ways for people from the different communities.
I think this is the most interesting and most comfortable manner in which you can use the platform of a dialogue
Right.
between different countries, between different regions, and between different communities, that you can use this platform of interfaith harmony in resolving the issues, on reconciliation, on lot of matters, because this is a thing that increasing the tradition by educating those people about, telling them about our religion and our tradition. I think this will make them more comfortable. So when they are celebrating their occasion and you are celebrating yours, there has to be
There
need
has to be
of
harmony and unity
exchange,
in that regard.
exactly, a
Right, sir.
unity, interfaith harmony between the communities,
Right.
between the religions, between the people of
Right,
different
right.
religions.
And this is the need of the hour for people, especially Muslims who are celebrating Eid abroad that way. On which I'll come to you, Haja. We must also talk about, in this regard, the need to give back to the society. And here, whereas of course we understand that if people like Sir and so many other people, the government in its own right is working, I do feel that an important responsibility also rests on people like yourself, so as to make the whole fashion and beauty industry more inclusive. So how can you particularly do that, more so when it comes to occasions like Eid?
Fatima, the first thing is that the initial concept of this new store, All Things Bridal, coming from an industry of fashion, it's been almost, mashallah, now 25 years. I could have chosen a path which only worked on my own brand as well. But the give back thing has always been there. I've come from I finished my schooling at a Christian convent. So that has been taught to us. And whatever you guys are discussing is exactly what was our culture at that time when we were growing up.
But the thing is that, is this a norm in Pakistan? Because, if
No,
you were to
nothing is a
analyze the
norm.
Western trends from what I see it from an objective viewpoint, we do see that International Paris Week, for example, we see young fashion designers being promoted. We see designers, we see
have a
makeup.
lot of issue here.
Right. This
There's
is
a lot of
exactly the
red
question,
taping
because
here.
you perhaps that
Yeah.
exception to the general rule.
Also, I have been subjected to the red taping, so I understand the red taping.
Right.
I have understood it because we all of us sitting here are coming from, a lot of hard work has been put into wherever we have come in our lives today. So the first thing is that the red taping, what it does is that it does not let the businesses grow. So that's why I will not take names, but other countries, you see a massive, because of inclusivity, a massive growth in every department and everything. Unfortunately, because of the culture sometimes we have, there's so much of, if this person succeeds, maybe this will affect me.
But
If
do you
that
not feel
person
that this is
succeeds-
too much? And I think your narrative here becomes, when it comes to the beauty and fashion industry of the country, it might be there in other sectors too, but here there's so much cutthroat
It's always been,
competition.
it's a cutthroat industry.
Right.
It's a cutthroat industry. And I'd appreciate Amjad sir, that the work that he's doing with Akhuwat. I think this is, again, one thing is amazing about this country, let's just give it that, that whenever there is a give back moment, we all are very charitable.
That's very right.
We've all seen it. Our culture just comes together.
Of course.
And there's a lot of giving back, sort of insight, because of number one, our faith. Number secondly, I think we're at the very empathetic as a nation.
Right.
as well.
Very compassionate that way
Very
too.
compassionate that way, that we give back a lot. So
Right.
that's amazing.
Right.
I mean, that would be.
And on this, sir, I'll come to you. We must also, of course, talk about your work with regards to the flood affectees. And we do understand, I remember doing this show with you early on as well, where we spoke about the flood relief fund that you did have. So when it comes to occasions like Eid, are you making some extra measures so as to ensure those people who have been flood stricken, they are also kind of taken care of?
Yeah, let me first compliment the whole nation for the great, spirit of giving and compassion which was demonstrated during those few months. Those are months of gloom, but I think those were also months of glory for this nation. Now, I haven't seen any person, whether poor, rich, coming from middle class. I went to colleges, universities, streets and towns. people were, absolutely they overwhelmed me by demonstrating the spirit of giving and compassion. So the point here is that we shouldn't forget those people. They should always be in our memory.
Right.
And I will urge that instead of me or you, people from Karachi, from Islamabad, Lahore, going to Rajanpur or going to Fazilpur or going to some other, provinces, the people living in the neighborhood districts,
they should go and spend time with
living
them.
in the same city who were unaffected by these rains, they should go and embrace their brothers and sisters who were in trouble. They should go with some gifts. They should go with some clothes.
Of course.
They should go with some eatables.
Right.
So that showing a sense of solidarity is
with them.
something which keeps us binding as a nation.
That's very
so
right.
That will create the environment of mawakhat which we stand for.
Right.
What do we stand for?
Of
we
course.
say that 50% people are haves and 50% people are have-nots. If one person from here embraces and shows solidarity with one person from have-nots, we can build a better society.
Right.
So this is the occasion to show
of course
that we are here for you.
Right, sir. Which is precisely why I asked this question, because a lot of times whole debate is on just festivity, on actually celebration, which of course is not wrong. But what is equally important is to understand the spirit as well.
Absolutely.
And there are so many things happening, for example, that, the Child Welfare Protection Bureau, they are leading this amazing initiative, giving EDs out to the children who are actually orphans there. So I think a little things, they can perhaps go a long way. On which I'll come to you, Dr. Sahiba. I must also talk about your Eid here. Now I understand that you yourself are a full-time working doctor, and then you're also of course working at home, presumably on Eid, because I know with working career-oriented women that perhaps could be slightly a task. But when managing it all, especially when it comes to doing all the household chores and of course cooking, we see that a lot of times, women complain, they are so absorbed in all these issues that they don't get that me time so as to celebrate Eid. Would you agree with this?
No, not in my case. Actually, we have a big get-together, family get-together, in which lots of things are done by my mom or my husband.
So there's division of responsibility.
There's division of responsibility, which makes it easier. And I think this is the whole spirit of Eid. So living together, working together and enjoying together, rather than sitting at my home and sleeping all day long. I don't prefer that. I always feel like more relaxed when I visit my relatives, when I visit my mom's house, my grandmother's house. So I really like that spirit, and I miss that spirit. While we were young, we used to get 100 rupees note, the crispy 100 rupees note.
Also the 50 rupee note,
yes.
And often we see it stapled.
Yes, and its smell and the sheer khurma, eating those sheer khurmas and wearing those chudidar pajamas and kurtas and even ghararas at times.
Right.
So this was the tradition which we are trying to carry on, and we like to celebrate Eid in the same manner nowadays. So I think we are catching up. We are trying to make our children realize what was our tradition and we should be following.
Right, Dr. Sahiba. On which I'll take you on board, Zulfikar Sahib. I think here it's also very important to then talk about overall how has social media impacted the way we celebrate Eid. And generally we have seen that there have been differing opinions on the same. So overall, would you feel this is something which has been for the greater good? Or do you feel that, this has actually kind of, made that gap between the elderly generation, of course, the younger generation more wide?
I think the gap has even widened, but we should take this social media platform as an opportunity to bridge the gap between the elders and the younger generation, because they need to, the younger generation needs to be educated and to be told this thing, that what are the traditions that elder have been doing before. So if I have been given this opportunity, I would invite all the elderly, my uncles, my aunts, and tell my younger generation to sit down and listen to them what they have been doing on Eid. And that learning, that education thing should be told to others and educate others through social media platforms. So it should be for the public at large to understand, because younger generation, they have been, as somebody mentioned about taking selfies, it's not only about taking selfies, it's about more than taking selfies, because what elder people have been doing in their Eid days and what we have seen, things are totally changing.
Right.
It's transforming.
Right.
But we need to
I think
remember.
a lot of things that we need to give the younger generation credit to. Gen Z, for example, I was reading this report which actually suggested the fact that TikTokers have been the fashion trend setters in ways more than one, basically. So I think there are a lot of things that we need to give them credit to as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at one of the perspective, TikTokers, you can give credit, but look at the other perspective. But if you are an educated person and you are not on TikTok, you don't, nobody is going to value you, and you are not that earning that much what TikTok is so much
Right,
making
but
money
you know,
out
now
of.
people of influence, those belonging to different walks of life, everybody has, if not a TikTok account, they definitely have some presence on Instagram or Twitter.
We have to work with this.
Right, basically.
Changes as they come, but
Right.
how you utilize that change is always what matters.
Exactly.
And I think the message that we are all trying to give on
Give
our
is
own
that
side is that
gap needs to be
use it
bridged, right.
positively,
Constructively, so to
constructive
speak.
usage
Of
it.
course. And for that, the parents also need to be involved at some level, because of course, if you're not monitoring your child's social media usage, then go astray very easily. On which I'll come to you, Haja, and moving towards the end of this special Eid show. So when we talk about Eid, have seen over a period of time that the fashions, they change. What is in this year might not be in next year. But when it comes to ensuring that there is something which is timeless, especially when it comes to your clothing preferences or your styling preferences, what do you feel is something which will always be there to stay?
Okay, so that's a great question, because what I chose to wear today also is basically, this is all handwork.
Mukesh.
All Mukesh, all shadow work, which is actually chikankari. It's an amalgamation of we know the work that has been going on in the south of Punjab.
Right.
This is just a finer version of that, and it becomes, the words come out to be chikankari because there is a laser cut way of working at it. But at the end of the day, this is all handmade traditional work, including the Mukesh in it. What Pakistan will never lose until Pakistan is, it's one of those most traditional, because we have that subcontinental base.
Right.
So I think, and I think somehow or the other, we've all just talked about a lot of traditions today. So I think, again, it goes back to the same thing for fabric as well. What we have in our country when it comes to handmade fabric, that is classic. That will never go out of fashion. You can continue wearing it forever.
Right.
It's timeless.
Of course.
Yeah. So invest in great fabric.
Invest in great fabric. At the end of the day, it's the quality which matters, basically. On which I'll come to you, Dr. Saab. So what would your view be before we end today's special Eid show, that when it does come to giving back to the society, how particularly do you feel can young people be that catalyst for social change? Because we have spoken about your commendable work, we have spoken about the work of the civil society, but do you not feel here that the young people in Pakistan, they also have a very important responsibility vested upon themselves?
You know, maybe we all have not seen the true plight of the women or the, extremely poor and extremely marginalized and extremely underprivileged people in the deserts of Thar and the heights of Himalayas. So, social media, yes, but why don't we utilize social media for accessing these people? They have their 20 million children in the school don't go to school. So, what are the real issues? So, we should try to focus that if a nation of 220 million and 20 million children, 2 crore, boys and girls don't go to school. So, what we are giving message to them? So, now Eid is the day when it's all inclusive. So, it is not just confined to the drawing rooms or the palatial bungalows. This is a festivity which should go
and inclusivity, I think
well.
the responsibility then again, stems from the society at large, something which you earlier so very rightly mentioned, from people like her, from you, and then of course from political workers like yourself too. On which I'll come to you, Dr. Madhiya, and before we end today's show, your narrative here with regards to giving all the viewers and women viewers the right tips is of course very important too. So when we talk about striking that right balance between looking good but doing it in a manner which doesn't make you uncomfortable per se, how can that be done? Because a lot of times we see that, people do get treatments done, but it is something which doesn't make them look like themselves, or it is something which doesn't come off to be very comfortable, like people don't feel very comfortable carrying off the same.
So don't follow all the trends. all the trends are not good. So, and skin is not a trend. You should be taking care of yourself and you should try to look natural. So, if you want anything to be done, it should be done in a minimally invasive manner. So, there should be a little bit of change which will look good on your face. In case if you're facing some problem with the pigmentation, if you don't like some lines, that's okay, fine. But don't try to change yourself into someone else. Don't try to look like some other celebrity which you are following on the social media page. So we have a big responsibility as well. So we should be educating people not to follow all kind of trends and
blindly,
not to change their looks.
Right.
Yes.
Whatever you do, you should end up looking like yourself, perhaps a better version of yourself.
Yes.
Right, Dr. Saiba, on which I'll come to you, Zulfikar Saab, and before concluding today's special Eid show, I think it's equally important that we also talk about the role of the government here. Now, we do understand that during Ramadan, we saw that the government was distributing all these flour bags, more particularly amongst the poor and, of course, the needy segments of the Pakistani society. But when it comes to making all these, Eid celebrations more inclusive, can we expect something from the government in this regard?
Government has been taking a lot of initiatives, but especially on Eid, especially about the flood affected people who have been, affected by the flood. Government is going to give them some monetary benefits, especially in the interior Sindh and the South Punjab. That's what I know a little bit about. And one of the things that Benazir Income Support Program have been contributing a lot in this and have been facilitating the women who have been, badly devastated because of this flood.
Right.
So government is doing a good job, and whatever capacity they have been trying to extend their facilitation to these flood affected people.
Right. But at the end of the day, I think this is something on which we all mutually agree that this is something which must emanate from the society at large too, because of course there's only so much that the government or the state in itself can do. On which note, I would like to end today's show. Thank you so much, Hajra. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Saiba, and thank you so much, Zulfikar Saab, for your precious time today. Well, to conclude today's show, we generally spoke about Eid being a joyous occasion, whereas of course we do understand the fact that Eid is that one day where we all come together so as to celebrate it with our family and of course with our friends too. It should also be that one day where we actively strive to uplift and of course empower the poor and the destitute people in the Pakistani society. We need to be more kind and compassionate towards them, and we also need to remember them when it comes to celebrating Eid. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.